Thank you very much for joining us on the Cloud FM podcast. And today we are talking about WSL. How to use container on Windows WSL. What are the best use cases we prefer WSL? Our other solution running Docker and Kubernetes cluster. Do WSL is a good fit for running K3s or K0s based cluster on my laptop and PC? Does this is a mandatory for me to have a knowledge of Linux if I am running my container on WSL? I am a developer. Primarily, my job is to build apps that runs on Windows. But ever since containers becomes a thing, everybody wants to build their infra on top of Kubernetes. But container origins from Linux and Linux world, and I don't have this knowledge. But I want to be successful with Kubernetes and other orchestration technologies. How WSL helped me in that with zero or little effort. That is the topic of agenda, and I'm really happy today is joined me Nuno Ticormo, the best friend of mine from where. Thank you, Nuno. Let's
Hi,
introduce yourself to
same.
our audience.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. And I, same. Nice to see you again.
Absolutely. And tell me a bit about like you're working with our currently Suze Rancher, how the things happening there, because I'm the big fan of the K3S and all things that you are working there.
Good, good. Yes, I'm working currently for SUSE Rancher. Um, I call it like that. It's SUSE and it's Rancher Labs. And I'm a tech writer for the open source projects of Rancher. So Rancher side again. But yeah, I'm working there since 8, 9, 10 months. I don't know. I lost track now, but really enjoying again coming back to technical company and really awesome. And yeah, continuing my WSL crusades around the world.
Yes, absolutely. So I think you're the go-to resource for me at least, and hopefully everybody watching to us or listening to us. That Nuno is a wonderful person to hang out and talk, think around WSL or all things. So Nuno, like WSL, let's first understand how it's came into being and why where you look at because I seen the big use case is like previously I have a Windows machine and I want to give a training to other and I have a very small amount of time to give them a virtual machine, and a virtual machine takes 2 to 3 hours to spin up. So
Yeah.
WSL give me just I think 60 seconds to spin up the virtual machine and start hacking with Linux kernel. So tell your journey to being into the WSL plus the newest feature that recently came up.
Right. So I have a presentation. If you don't mind, maybe it will help
Yes, absolutely,
all
absolutely.
everyone. So let me share screen. Share screen. And let me share screen one.
Yes, I can see
Okay.
this.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. So I will go through the slides. You might already have seen them somewhere else. So we will try to get to the demo, right? So the demos and with S, that's what we want to see here. So bring your questions, like Same said, and then Same, if you have also questions, please don't hesitate. So let me get here. So yeah, who is the quarter? We don't care really. It's me, but it's more like what is WSL, and how it will interact with the cloud native and how it came to be actually. So very quick. So daytime already said. Tech writer at SUSE Rancher. I'm a Portuguese living in Switzerland. I have various hobbies. Pick one. And I have 4 cats, or my wife has 4 cats. Therefore, I have 4 cats. I have some recognitions by the communities mainly. That's really dear to me because it's work for the community and get recognized is always good. But it's first go and provide to the community. Forget the recognitions at the very beginning. Then on Nine Time, that's me. I'm WSL Corsair since 2016, actually. So 6 years already that I've been like passionate about this technology. I'm a hobbyist actually in IT, so I love discovering new things, and cloud native has a lot. So props to that. You can find me on at Nunix Tech on Twitter. I do blogging and adding several distros. We will see that today very fast. And then I have this famous and unique ad from Brian Kettleson, the WSL Kettleson ad. All right, that was me. So first thing first, let's suppose that not everyone here knows what is WSL2. Okay, so WSL2 is a subsystem on Windows, and the L stands for Linux in this case. Normally, you would read that by Linux subsystem on Windows, but trademarks and everything makes it that Windows name needs to come first, right? So that's the Windows subsystem for Linux. Then this was invented first as WSL1, where it was just more a compatibility layer or translation layer, where you will run Linux commands, it will transform them to be read by the NT kernel, so Windows kernel. Okay, so here mainly we are not inside a VM, as you can read. Can I point? Do I have a pointer? Laser pointer, beautiful. So it's not a managed VM. Okay, there's no full Linux kernel at all, and therefore there's not all the system calls compatibility. So there was like maybe 90% of it, but then Windows and Linux are still fundamentally different at the kernel level for some aspects. Okay, so some system calls from Linux could not be translated as is or easily towards the NT kernel. So a couple years later, what we saw was that WSL2 was invented. And this one took actually something that I also am fond of, which was like the Linux containers on Windows, LCOW. Okay, so Windows containers, you can run them, but you need the Windows image inside them. All right. But then all the demos that you see out there actually are on Linux mainly. They have Alpine containers, they have Ubuntu containers, Debian, SUSE containers, right? You don't have the Windows. So what they did, the team of the containers team in Microsoft, they created with Docker at the time, they created these LCOW, so Linux containers on Windows. But then the Windows team, they saw like, okay, wait, we could actually leverage it because the technology is quite nice, and with few tweaks, then we could do something else. And that's actually what they did. They leveraged the LCOW, let's say, code base, I guess, or at least the IDs. And what they did is like they created WSL2. So WSL2 is a VM. It's a micro VM though. So if you are in the cloud native space and you heard about Firecracker, for example, um, it's something that will be a very tiny VM with some resources that will be shared between the host and the VM, like memory, CPU, for example. And then you will be able to actually launch this micro VM way faster. Now, because it's a VM, now we do have the full Linux kernel on it. Okay. And thanks to that, then we will have the full system call compatibility. Some of them, because it's still like a tweaked VM. Okay. So some of them are sometimes not possible, not because they are not technically feasible, but it's more like on the WSL2 initial, let's say, processes like the slash init, then these system calls are for now, let's say, put on the side. Okay, but technically speaking, we do have a VM with full Linux kernel, and we can run our Linux distributions on top of it. Just before I go further, both WSL1 and WSL2, since day one, respected one thing. They wanted the Linux binaries and userland, meaning even WSL1 will run unchanged Linux binaries. So if you run Ubuntu on WSL1 or your distro of choice, and you do like an update, it will go fetch the updates from the repositories of Ubuntu or your distribution. They will download it and run as is. So it will be like ELF binaries, like original ones. No modified, like Sigwin, for example, who recompiled like the binaries from Linux to Windows. Okay. On the top right, you can quickly see like the architecture, like the user modes or user lands. Okay, how it is. Here you can see the hypervisor running, and then we can see that both are connected here, and here the gray area is really like a lightweight VM. And as you can see, it comes from our dear friend Thomas Maurer, who did it. Now, here is still how it's viewed, maybe in the Linux broader space, when Microsoft and Ubuntu came together and they created WSL. So that's how it was seen. But fear not, WSL is here to help Linux, to help adoption of Linux. Actually, you can run Linux and you can maybe switch later on to a full bare metal Linux if you like. But if you want to learn Linux commands while keeping on some system that you know, the UI that you know, which is Windows, or you want to keep gaming. Let's be honest here. So you might want to use sometimes WSL. Okay, but again, for me, it's more a gate to popularize even further Linux than just extinguish it. But anyway, that's my point of view. Sorry. All right. So now, how it came to be, how it's my, let's say, my personal journey. Before, let's say I just knew Windows, or I wanted to stay in Windows. However, I love cloud native, like I said. So I tune in to any great conference, KubeCon, Reject IO, other summits around the world. And I would see like a very cool demo, right, about this new product. And I'm like, wow, so cool. But still, I have like already two things in mind. Does it run on Windows? Is there any examples for PowerShell? Okay, so that's the first, let's say, always like the sweet and sour. Sweet, oh yeah, and sour is like, okay, do they have any binary for Windows, for example? And well, it always ends into a trick or treat where it's like, no, you cannot play with it on Windows because it's simply not running there. Or, hey, here is the binary, and here is even better our docs. Okay. Or the blog post that explains how to run it on Windows. But as you can see, is always like a little bit of a roller coaster every single time that a new demo, especially in the cloud native space, right? But when a new demo comes in, I'm like, okay, does this product run or will run on Windows? So what better to show just like the, let's say, the father of them all right now is no more Docker. Let's say it's Kubernetes is the new king. And then, well, Kubernetes is also a trick or treat actually. So before I go there, Kubernetes as workers running on Windows, but not main Kubernetes cluster, okay, the control plane. So by default already, we know that it's not possible to have Kubernetes as a standalone on Windows. We will always need something, and that's part of your questions afterwards, saying anyway. But here is like Kubernetes trick or treat. Actually, it's kubectl. So the tool that we use to discuss with the cluster, okay, with the API of Kubernetes, it's called kubectl. So I pronounce it kubectl. That's a choice. Don't fight me. Okay, if you name it something else, please do. But for me, it will be kubectl. And here is a bit tiny, but you can see here that the example actually is on Linux. Okay, for Bash. It's a Bash example. So I'm like, okay, so first part of the roller coaster, I really want to work with Kubernetes. I need to download this kubectl, but okay, so the first example is already like Linux. Okay. After searching a little bit, actually, I can see the install kubectl on Windows. Cool. I'm glad. So here I can tell, okay, you can tell it's a bit old, like it's 120. We are at 124 right now, soon 125 actually. So the thing is like here it explains you, okay, and even hopefully, okay, it's maybe really small, but I will provide the slide so we can download it from somewhere. But here you will see that even the examples are using not the PowerShell commands, they are using PowerShell alias, which is curl, because curl comes from Linux and everyone knows curl. So here actually you have like Linux commands, but behind the scenes they are really PowerShell commands. So you can just run them. You're fine. Okay. But then it's like curl, 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 cert util, do this, do that. Anyway, you can have kubectl running just like that. Okay. So then, like when you are running CLI, like a command line utility or interface, right? The first time, you might want to have some help. And the help that comes in addition to documentation is normally the auto completion. Okay, so auto completion will help you by tapping tab. You will see some options and you can start reading or guessing your way, right? The sad thing, or the sad thing when I created these slides was that here you can see it's like bash completion, and again, bash on Linux, bash on macOS, ZSH. We are missing something here, right? For the Windows user, I have PowerShell. It's cool to have Bash. I will love Bash, and I will get it later on. But then it's like right now I have PowerShell, and the power of open source software here is that if you don't have PowerShell autocompletion, well, you might create an issue against the repo of the set project. Here is kubectl. You might have other projects, and you go and you just say, okay, kindly just ask for, does it exist a PowerShell or a Windows binary? Okay, and you will see, like up to this day, there's a lot of talk around the internet, but right now I will just give you my own, let's say, experience. Every time that I approach someone for Windows work about their project, they were thrilled that I could test it, that I could help, giving maybe hints. I'm not a developer, so I could not help there, but I could help them somewhere else, like understanding how Windows works or what it needs or something like that. And every single one was really kind and willing to help a lot. And seriously, just for that, don't be shy when, if you are working with Windows, don't be shy in the cloud native space to ask for Windows help. Potentially, sometimes it will come back to me or to other friends in the WSL community because we also know Windows, right? To some extent. But please don't be shy because here, so at the time of the creation of these slides, you can tell that it was still open. Now, hopefully, I can tell you, if you look at the issue 613 in the kubectl repo, it will be closed because now PowerShell completion is something that exists. Beautiful. So until here, we are Windows users. Hopefully, I'm not alone here, but we are Windows users. And the thing is like, okay, at some point in time, this roller coaster is, I like roller coasters, but too long might be too hard on me. So to ease my pain and our pain, here is where WSL2 can help. So The first part is like I said, and Saim, I know you are exactly the same, but we love learning. Okay, that's our thing. We wake up one Monday, we want to learn something, and the next Monday we're already learning something else. Okay, that's something that's it's like that, but we like it. The thing is WSL2 will help us, especially in the Windows world again, will help us to do what I call the unchanged blog reading. Okay, so I can read the blog and I can type the exact commands, meaning control pass sometimes because the commands might be long, but I can control pass paste, control paste on my WSL2 distro, and it will just be working. Okay. And if I have an error, then it's potentially that other users running Linux, they will have the same error. So I'm happy with that. Okay. Then, like I said just before, there's a first easy contact with Linux. Okay, so Linux can be complicated, is definitively complex when you come from a world where everything is provided to you. Okay, so like Windows, Mac OS, everything you just arrive, you configure something, and you're good to go. Linux is the same, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not the same. Linux is the same, but Linux definitively, the power of Linux, or one of the power of Linux, is the amazing choice of possibilities that you can do in configuration and so on. But again, being a beginner at some point in time, that can be overwhelming. You don't want like the whole package, you just want just to know like the basic package, and then you will grow, right? So here WSL2, what it can do for you is really like to give you like a small Linux um, yeah, intro if you want. Okay, then in terms of practice, like I said, you can run unmodified Linux binaries on top WSL1, WSL2. And again, like a distribution, we are using the original repositories. That's really important. Again, technically, you don't have to set up any VM. Okay, like Saim was saying at the very beginning, when he wants to provide a training, the first thing is like, okay, which OS are you running? Okay, might be not the good one, so you need to run a VM. Now, which technology it does run? Is it VirtualBox? Is it multipass? Is it something else like native? Or do you have an error, no error? Do you have space, no space? Okay, we all go there, right? So here, there's no VM setup. You don't think about the VM. And finally, we can leverage the Windows binaries. That's what they call the interoperability. It's a long term for non-speaking English. So we came from Linux versus Windows all these years until 2015, around that era where Satya Nadella came to the reins of Microsoft, and now Microsoft loves Linux. I love this saying. I'm not alone, but I'm certainly not the. It's not only one place, okay. But if you want to keep fighting, good for you. But believe me, we moved on since few years now. All right. Before we go to the demos, finally, sorry, I know I'm taking time, but I like to have like a good context. There's real use cases of WSL2 actually already. So WSL2 meaning when you have real use cases like companies using it, it reached like the point that is no more a fun technology, a hobby. It's mean like someone is using it for production. One of the cases, and I start from the right side, but that's okay, you will understand. Is like data scientists. And here, my ex company, HP, they actually created, they have a workstation meant for data scientists. So, artificial intelligence, machine learning, right? So they have this powerful machine that they are selling, and on their setup to help the data scientists, they have actually a full page on WSL2 and how to install it, how to use it on their machines. I found it like super cool because when you have like a company such as HP, which is one of the leaders in the world of computing, right? I mean, everyone knows HP. So when you have a company like this that uses WSL and promotes WSL to work with their state of the art machines, then you definitely know that something is good about it. The second one might tell a lot more to other people. It's a developer. It's a game developer company, and this company is Blizzard actually, and they already did a few demos where they were showing how they were developing on WSL2 to develop Diablo 4. So if you like games, if you have like played Diablo, potentially everyone, but we never know. So know that, Diablo 4 somehow will also be used by Blizzard with WSL2, which is really great. All right, times for demos. So, Saim, are you with me still?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. It's a great going. I love
Good,
the
good.
concepts.
Nice. All right. So I will go first through this demo once. You will see there are several. Then we will switch. I have two virtual machines that are fully, let's say, fresh, fully fresh, and we will see just a couple difference. Okay. So how to enable WSL2 at the origin? First thing first, and I spoke with a lot of people, please ensure that you have a CPU that runs virtualization. Here is Intel, AMD is the same. So not only should your CPU have virtualization technology capability, but also it should be enabled. So your first day actually using WSL2 should start on the BIOS if you're not sure. Today, if you let's say if you buy a laptop, by default this one is enabled. I'm quite sure, like 99% of the time this will be enabled. If you're not sure, try to enter the BIOS of your laptop, okay, or your computer is a bit easier, but the laptop sometimes is like a set of keys. And then try to find the virtualization, try to enable it, and that will be the first step. Then manually, okay, like I said, this is the first way, so it's a bit of story. We will go through a little bit faster afterwards. But then WSL2 needs at least two things: the virtual machine platform, so two things being features, Windows features. So virtual machine platform and then the Windows subsystem for Linux itself, right? But this will leverage the virtual machine platform feature. Now, what does it mean? It means that since Windows 10 20 H2, I think, or something like that, Microsoft worked hard with also the computer manufacturers to bring actually the WSL to Windows Home. You can see that I'm not using hypervisor, and above you don't see it, but I'm not using Hyper-V. This is just a subset of virtualization that's just the subset that WSL will need it. So it means that if you have Windows Home, at least I would say bring it to the most recent one, but sometimes you cannot, right? You are studying or you are in a company, you are blocked. Hopefully, let's say that you have at least 20H2, okay? I think it's the one. Then once you do that, you click OK. Of course, being Windows, you will reboot. Okay. Once you rebooted, you will see the Windows Subsystem for Linux update, where you do go next, next, next. It's like an application, and this will install just the base. So there's a common, how do you say, a common thinking sometimes. So let me be clear here. Windows Subsystem for Linux is not a Linux. Okay, it's not a distribution. WSL2 is a layer of virtualization that allow us to run Linux and then distributions on top of it. WSL2 is not Linux. WSL2 can be compared to, I don't know, like multipass VirtualBox if you want, like headless VMs. Okay, so don't get it twisted a little bit. I see a lot of people saying like, oh, WSL2 is the end of Linux, is the Microsoft Linux. No, stop. It's not. It's just the layer that will enable you to run the distros. Okay, then that's why you see this page now. Then on top of it, you need to install a distribution. Okay, so you have the base. Let's say that you have a computer with a kernel, and that's it. You can boot, that's cool, but you cannot do anything. You need the user space, right? That's your distribution. And then your distribution, that's the one that will start running then all the commands and all the binaries from the Linux world. Okay? And finally here, you can see that you can boot. So forget the first line, that's just me. But then if we call ubuntu.exe, then it will start WSL2. And here you can see that the kernel at the time was 5.4 and it was Ubuntu 2004. Okay? That's a way of installing. So that was the initial way. Of course, well, the community was behind, and at some point in time when we have always the same questions about like how do I enable it, how do I do things, then we provide this feedback to Microsoft, and Microsoft worked on it. And that's where we started to have something way easier. Again, we will always start with your virtualization. Just be sure that it's enabled. And then here, look at this. We will do a WSL list online just to see what WSL distros are available. And then we will do a WSL -- install. And it will install the virtual machine platform, rings a bell, that's what I just spoke just before. It will install the Windows Subsystem for Linux itself, right? And then it will also directly bring the Ubuntu distribution or the other distributions that you might choose here, okay? And it will install it for you. Once you've done, okay, you will need actually to run it a first time. So here the last part is junk. Sorry for that, but you will have to run it. And once you run it correctly, then you will have take few minutes, blah blah blah, and here we are running on WSL. Okay, we will do this one actually. This one is quite nice, so we will do this one. And actually, you know what? Let's do it right now. So this is the Windows 10 VM, and if I type just WSL the first time, so WSL is not installed right now, but you can see, like I said, we have this nice install option. Okay, so if I do install, or even better, let's do the -- list -- online to see what they provide nowadays.
So Nuno, sorry to interrupt you. Can you share your terminal?
Oh, it's not sharing the. Oh, okay. Because I was sharing the screen. Okay, so let me do. Okay. Let me see quickly. Share. Strange. Stop screen. Share screen. Share screen. And share screen here.
Yes.
Very good.
Good, great. So can you just increase the font a bit?
Yeah.
Yes, it's good. It's look visible.
So sorry. So quickly, I did WSL. Simply WSL. You can tell that it's not installed. I have almost no options. And now if I do the WSL list online, and let me bring it to the top, then you can see this is the defaults that we have that we can install. And so if I do a simple install like that, it will install Ubuntu by default. Okay, so let us do this one here. And here you can see it's installed the virtual machine platform. It will run for a bit, then it will install the rest, as you can tell here. So let us go back to the demo. Oh no, okay, sorry. That's why I didn't want to bring this one here. How do I exit now? God. Okay. So here we are back. Yeah, good. So that was the one, okay, that we just did. Now nowadays, so you know the thing is like nowadays there's another way to install it. I will show it on the Windows 11, which is the going forward. So this part might actually be discarded also in the future, hopefully. But once you enable the features, machine platform and subsystem for Linux, then what you will do is like as a good user, Windows user, you go to the store. Okay, you don't want to really start typing right away a lot of commands. No, you're, let's say we are still Windows users, we like our GUIs, right? So let's say that you want to do that. So you go to the store, you search for Windows Subsystem for Linux, and now it's available from the store directly. Okay, so it's an app from the store. It's like a feature still kind of, but from feature like that is really attached to the Windows, meaning it will need to wait on the Windows releases to be updated. Now Microsoft did something really intelligent, is like they take it away, made it as a module, okay, almost, and then now they have their own pace, and the Windows, let's say, team is working on their own pace too. But the two are no more that hard linked, okay? It's more a soft link now. And once you do that, again, you will need to choose one distro to be installed. And once it's installed, again, we will run it and it will be there. Okay. So before I go to advanced config, okay. So now it's working fine. Let me just try this like that and bring my VM here. Okay. It works. Okay, good. So here change will be affected. So it downloaded the WSL kernel, blah, blah, blah. It downloaded Ubuntu, and now I need to restart my VM. Okay, which I will do quickly. Start. Just a quick tip, if you want to run on Hyper-V, you need to enable or you need to expose the virtualization. So it's the nested virtualization, okay? WSL2 needs virtualization, remember. So if you have virtualization, Hyper-V, let's say, in this case, you will need to run a command that exposes the virtualization headers, okay? And so you can add nested, what we call nested virtualization inside virtualization, okay? So what we will see just after, let me start going a little bit faster because I don't know if there's questions already, but you can ask them anytime now, Saim. So advanced configuration, we have the inside configuration of per distro. So each distribution will have a file like this one. And then we have the one time or WSL2 distro, okay, here at the, let's say, Windows side. So this is inside the WSL distros. This is inside Windows, okay? And here we have a set of, let's say, options that we can use, leverage, and that will impact all the distributions, however, okay? That's really important. We'll see them afterwards. Now, when we talk about Windows and Linux or WSL2, like I said, there were two main points. One was to have unchanged user experience from Linux, okay, the Linux user space, user land. And then the other one was, well, it's Linux, okay, it's a small VM, cool, but then the real strengths of WSL2 is that it can interrupt, okay, with actually Windows. So we can see here that on the file system, so let me see if we can quickly. So here it's continuing the installation. As you can see, Ubuntu now it's running. And I want to go here. I don't think, I don't think I have it here. We will see it on Windows 11 maybe. So what I'm saying is that here we can see like Linux file systems, and we can interact from the Windows Explorer directly. Then there's networking. I don't like too much networking. Networking for now is seen, and I'm totally being frank here. I love WSL, but it's not a perfect system, right? So networking is the one point, maybe like the weakest, is the weakest link, let's say, of WSL2 right now, is the networking stack. Okay, how we cannot do fixed IPs, for example. It reuses the Hyper-V network, which is great per se, but because we cannot really impact it, then there's a lot of missing points there, and it impacts also sometimes DNS and so on. So networking, it's working, but still work to be done, definitely there. Then like I said, we can work with Linux on one side, and we can work with Windows on the other side. So here we do have the commands, okay, that we can simply run from one side to another. We will see that after. And finally, there's applications. So applications, I will get to them just a little bit after. I will list them, and we will at least have a look at two of them, because that's the two that we really wanted to see here. Okay, so, okay, still installing. So my guess is that my virtualization is not really working. But okay, I'll show my machine afterwards. I think it's even better. All right, so just one other thing here, and now we are starting to get a little bit more deep. It's not still the big deep dive, okay? We will get there. Same promise to you, so we will get there, believe me. But right now, here is a medium level. How do you best work with WSL in the Windows altogether? So now it's an end-to-end point of view. And here it's few things that I did, like few tests that I did, and I will just explain them quickly. So I'm here, I downloaded the Linux kernel at the time 5.15, okay? It's quite a big tar xz file, okay, few megs. The kernel is that big. And then what I did is like I went from WSL here, and I stayed on my WSL file system now. That's important. So here we are on Windows. You see, C users, Corsair, myself, then GitHub. And here it's a bit misleading, but the tilde/GitHub is on WSL only. Okay, it's the WSL home, not the Windows home. Okay, and then I expanded the archive. So I extracted the kernel, all the files, okay, to build the Linux kernel. I expanded them. So the source is, of course, mnt/c blah, 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 okay, my kernel. But when I do this command here, it will extract it in place. So in my WSL home, okay? This took me 28 seconds. Okay-ish. I mean, if you do it on Linux, extract it fully, I think you will get around maybe the same time or a bit faster, but not so much, okay? Then I did the same, but this time I went into the Windows file system on WSL, so you can reach the Windows file system, okay? And again, I did exactly the same command, 29 minutes. Remember, 28 seconds, 29 minutes. Okay, and then I repeated again the same. So I copied the tar exe file into my WSL home directly, and I untar it. Okay, 17 seconds. So my file is hosted in WSL home, and I extracted it in WSL home. Finally, my file is extracted from my home on WSL. So tilde/github, blah, blah, blah. Again, I will share my slides. And then I extracted it inside the Windows file system this time. And again, 29 minutes. So now, okay, it did finish, but my guess is not good. It's not WSL2 that I have here. And no, it is actually. Cool. All right. So here, if I run the terminal again, all right, what I'm saying is like, so my terminal now recognizes Ubuntu. So that's a nice, oh, of course you don't want. Okay, let me actually wsl-shell-v. So that's list verbose. It's running good. I like that. And if I run ubuntu.exe, it actually works. So whatever reason. If I look at the mount directory, you can see that I can see mount C. Okay, that's what I call my Windows file system. All right, I didn't configure at all here. How do you say? I didn't configure at all WSL, so that's why the permissions are all bad and everything. So here, what I did the first time is like I was in my home, so pwd, I was in my WSL2 home, right? And I untar, okay, I untarred a file. When I just do this command here without providing the place where I want to, I stay here, okay? That took me, in both cases, 17 seconds, okay? That's what it gave me. That's quite fast, okay? For a few megabytes compressed file. Now, when I went to, here, okay, I love the Windows Home truncated usernames. Microsoft, please. Anyway, so here, if I do the same, now, independent of where the file is, if I don't tell it to uncompress it on the WSL side and I stay here on my Windows side, it took 1/2 hour. So that's a known performance issue, okay? And that's one of the most, let's say, asked questions. Why is WSL2 so slow? Now, WSL2 by definition is not really slow. Again, it's a micro VM, runs really fast. The problem, though, is that the interoperability between the file systems is not that good, okay? For the ones who really know, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, okay, I did the CD, okay, my bad. So for the ones who really know Linux, if you just do mount, and now I will just grab MNT, you can see here that C column is mounted on MNTC, and the protocol is 9P, okay? Which is a great protocol, don't get me wrong. It's a protocol that both Windows and Linux understand. everyone is really using them by now. I think it's something that is really became almost like a standard now. When you speak about mounting volumes, Windows volumes into Linux, actually, you will use 9p. But then the thing is like somehow there's a performance issue, a big performance issue. So remember what I said. We could see, right? So I could see my files. Uh, Sorry, damn it. Okay, let's see documents, for example. Okay, I can see my files on the Windows side, but it means that actually, okay, so no, they didn't do it yet. But if I do something like this, okay, is it still dollar? Sorry, I'm not using. No, okay. So I'm not using Windows 10 since so long. But anyway, the thing is like you can actually, oh, maybe it's without the localhost. Yeah, okay, without localhost. Okay, my bad. Windows Home and Windows 10. So I can see, hopefully I can, okay, I can see my file system of my distro. Okay, so here, if I go to home, all right, and I new text file, hello from Windows, RTF file, Jesus, it's here. Okay, and again, I can do exactly the same. Okay, I don't want to enter too much in depth right now, but you can do really the same between the two. Meaning, please, and that's really, if you want to take one thing today out of here, is that take it out that work always on the WSL2 file system. It will be really fast. And if we come back here, let me get back again. I will get back to here. Okay, not the tooling. We will get back. Don't sweat. Here, developer tools. Microsoft Visual Studio Code, JetBrains, Docker, Rancher Desktop, Podman, they all now have an integration with WSL2. So you can have your UI, again, the UI on the Windows side, all these are taken from Windows only. Okay? So you can have the UI on the Windows side, but then it's running behind the scenes here. Studio Code, I think, is one of the best, but here also. But you can see that it does actually have the backend data on WSL2. Okay, so it has the connectivity. So no more, again, if you live here, no more use your files on Windows side. Try to have your projects, try to have your keys, whatever, on the distro side, on the WSL side, because your performance will just be, you saw like 15 seconds, sorry, 15 seconds, half hour. I mean, there's no match here at all. So believe me that you will get this type of performances win if you really move back to WSL2. And that's really like, please do it. Okay? So two things. I know that we are almost on time. Potentially, if we go a little bit more, if you have time, same. I have time, so but maybe the public want it a bit faster. So let us search for something that comes pre-configured. It's called Penguin. So Penguin is the first distribution, not the only one no more, but it's really the first distribution created by the WSL community, created Whitewater Foundry, company, and nowadays it's like it's configured to run on WSL for WSL. Okay, and by that I mean it's not a simple Linux distro that was just put inside WSL and now you use your tools. No, it was really thought of like for being used. Okay, so while I'm installing this one, let's us quickly go back. Yeah, Distros. Okay, so as you can see, we did the same thing twice. Is that we used a Microsoft Store distribution, okay, and we installed it on top of WSL. Now, as you can see here, we have what we call the side loading distros, okay, meaning you can take a root FS of a distribution that you might have, and here add it to WSL2, okay? So it doesn't mean that it needs to come from the, the Microsoft Store, okay? So here you can see that Ubuntu, Penguin, Debian, Kali, they are part of the distribution store, okay? But then Arch, Clear Linux, Slackware, Void Linux, Alpine is there now. Alpine, Gentoo or Gentoo, OpenSUSE, Tumbleweed at the time. So this one is now also part here. I don't even remember this one. Okay, Red Hat, Fedora, Amazon, and Oracle. Okay, so these ones, they are not part of the store, meaning you need to find some way else how to bring them. Okay, I'll show that just after. So it's still okay. 5 minutes. Give me just 5 minutes. Visuals. Visuals. They are really, let's say, important for all the users. But now there's a caveat. WSLG or graphics, okay, it will only be able to run on Windows 11. It will not be at least at this time backported into Windows 10. So if you have Windows 10, you still have to use, let's say, Xorg server like X XSRV, or I don't remember the name now, but something that Windows can have the X7 server. But if you have Windows 11, then you will be able to run actually graphics directly from your Linux without any what I call like intrusion by creating or by installing a new software. Okay, so here you're just using WSL, and by default it comes with graphics, Windows 11 only. Okay, and more. Sorry. And the extra tooling here. So not sure that we have it. Okay, let me launch it in the between and let us go away. So Windows has something called HCS Diag, which is a diagnostic tool, really. But it helps us to see what runs behind the scenes of Hyper-V or the virtualization stack. So Hyper-V itself, you can run a command, which is HVC. So I don't have it here because there's no Hyper-V, of course, here. But HVC, so Hyper-V control, I think, you can use it to see the running virtual machines, and you can interact with them. It's nice. But then the headless, or let's say the other, oh yeah, of course. Let me see if it does the trick. It does. So I pressed Control Shift and I clicked on it, and then you can see here it runs me administrator an administrator terminal. So if I do that, now we can see that WSL here, it's running. Okay, I cannot do much from here, to be totally sincere. I can only see that, okay, this one is running, and HCS Diag, if you just run it like that, it will provide you like, okay, some commands, but again, it's a diagnostic tool. This one will not work. This one will not work. This one will not work. This one will work though. So you can crash your WSL2 if you want. But nowadays there's a command called WSL shutdown, for example. And actually, if I do again WSL-L-V, so now we can see that WL Linux, so it was the original name of Penguin. Penguin is here, so I can. And what it will do, Penguin, and you will see, which is way different. So here, it tried to start something, okay, a tool, but unfortunately, like I said, Windows 10 is not running the graphics. Other else in Windows 11 now you have a nice graphic and you can choose your options and everything. Other else you can run the command Penguin setup, and you will just go, okay, it will need sudo, and then it will do a lot of things here. Okay, so let us back. So that was this tooling here. This one is nice, is how to interact actually with the base distro that gets run behind the scenes by WSL to start the graphics mainly. So in Windows 10 might not work. And of course, we have from the same people who did Penguin, we have Raft. Okay, it's a management tool for WSL2 on Windows. And this one, I did, like I said, it's a brand new machine, but it's like this one will really help you to see how many distros you have installed, how many distros you could install from the store. Okay, so it's a one place fit all kind of, which is quite nice. And also you have options where you can tell like, okay, I want to have WSL1 as default, no, I want to have WSL2 as default, which distro is your default, and so on. Okay, the developer tools, like I said, that's what we saw, or I will quickly do something. Yeah, and the knowledge, so let's stay here because still Siam promised you something, and I really want to don't let people say that Siam lied to us, because I'm the one lying right now, right? So install on Windows. Here we go, 151, perfect. So I'm installing now Rancher Desktop quickly, just to show you. So everything that we saw here, don't get discouraged or like say, oh my God, he didn't show us anything. The thing is like, everything that I showed you here, if you really understand the bits, then the rest being Rancher Desktop, we can go for Podman also, Podman 4, I think it says. No, I never asked for that. I just said 4. Okay.
Yes, and Nuno, one have a we have a one question for you
Oh yeah,
on
please.
the chat. How can we share clipboard between WSL, Ubuntu, and Windows?
It is by default actually. That's a very good point. So there's two ways. Like here, let's say that I write my friend say sorry. Okay. So now I can just do it and it doesn't do much. Okay. But now remember that we are actually working with Windows behind the scenes, and Windows has this thing called clip, okay, which is actually the clipboard. So when I do this here, now let me open Notepad. So I'm in Notepad, right? And I go to edit, and you see that I have here something paste, sorry. And you can see that I copied the clipboard or the extract, or I set the clipboard inside from Ubuntu to actually Windows. So here it has kind of the same, okay? But again, remember, you are on the terminal at the end of the day, right? Except if you have really, let's say, something that executes and has unseen or copies to the clipboard of Linux. Okay, they have also one. I don't remember now the name, but they have also one. Okay, so you could actually is like try to paste it inside clip.exe. Okay, and like that you will have your clipboard coming into play. But again, when you are using the terminal, all right, so here I'm in Notepad, right? So if I do ll, for example, I copy, and then I come here, I passed, so I right clicked it. I mean, depends on what clipboard, let's say, functionality you are searching for, like not functionality, but where you want to really copy or paste. It's like it's still all um, it's still all Windows here, right? So WSL is part of Windows. It's not like a VM, for example, right? If you have VirtualBox, you have this mindset of sharing clipboards both ways or something like that, right? Because you are actually interacting inside something that's private memory. Here, the memory, remember, is shared. The micro VM shares memory. Okay, hope it answers.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the
Yeah,
elaborating
no,
this.
no, but at least one question. I'm almost proud. All right,
Yes.
so if we go quickly to Podman, also, I just want to, we go here. As you can see, they have an MSI now. Yeah. I want to keep it. I believe in Podman also. All right. And at the same time, I want to install Rancher Desktop first. Sorry, it's like 10 minutes more, but
And
let
another
me
question.
know.
Yes,
Yeah.
another question. I think that's when you really like it. Rancher better than Docker. Is Rancher better than Docker? For me,
Oh,
for me is yes, because I am working these days a lot on Rancher desktop.
right. So, all right. I'm in okay. So my company is SUSE Rancher, okay, and I love Rancher Desktop. At the same time, as you can see here, almost okay. Let me turn it a little bit. I'm also Docker Captain, meaning somehow I also love Docker. I'm Swiss, I don't take sides. I love both, right? So the thing is like
Yes.
that. Think about Rancher Desktop as Kubernetes first, not only first, distribution or tool for containers. Okay, the tool here allows you to do a lot around Kubernetes. Like you can select versions. Docker Desktop cannot select versions. You can choose between Containerd and Dockerd, which Docker Desktop again cannot do it. However, if you look at the recent development of Docker Desktop, you have extensions, you have the dev environments, you have like on Mac, particularly not really on WSL2, but on Mac, you have like they leverage now the host virtualization, where Rancher Desktop uses another very nice tool. I love it. It's called Lima. Okay, so and Docker Desktop is containers first, not Kubernetes first. Okay, so both tools actually could live hand in hand. Okay, one has a pricing model if you are in a company, but it's totally free if you are a student or hobbyist. You can use Docker Desktop as much as you want if your company is not that big, actually, even. Okay, now Rancher Desktop, in the other end, of course, it comes with like the old expertise of K3s, right? So here I will just select the defaults. But the thing is, like, K3s is one of the, let's say, there's various Kubernetes distributions nowadays. And by distributions, I mean you have Kubernetes vanilla, right? The Kubernetes project. And then you have different distributions that added or removed, in the case of K3s, in this case, not features, but K3s removed actually all the, let's say, the vendors' own settings or own plugins, if you want, like Azure or an AWS or something like that. Okay, that might be inside Kubernetes that allows you to run it more efficiently. Okay, now by no means it doesn't say that you cannot install these set plugins inside K3s. K3s is unchanged, let's say, in mentality and code base of Kubernetes. It just changed some parts. Okay, it's not even a fork. It's more like a tweak, if you want. Okay, we are not talking about like Fedora and Debian. We are kind of more talking like Debian and Ubuntu almost, right? So totally compatible. All right. So simply K3s, by removing all these, let's say, extras parts that us, like when you are running on your desktop, you don't really care about connectivity with Azure or AWS or Oracle Cloud or whatever, right? Or Google Cloud for that matter. So the thing is, like, K3s is really optimized to run on, let's say, way less um, footprint. Okay, sorry, I was searching the term, but like it has a way smaller footprint. All right, so by running, let's say, Rancher Desktop in this case, you will have K3s. All right, the footprint really low, and then you can start creating your containers and more specifically start using Kubernetes right away and the tooling for Kubernetes. All right,
Yes,
if we
and
see
one more question for you, Nuno, is about related to GPU pass through. Error related to GPU pass through.
GPU pass through.
Yes.
So there's NVIDIA and Intel, okay, that might have, okay, NVIDIA created two things. You can use the calculation of your GPU, okay, from WSL2. For that, you need, however, to install the NVIDIA WSL enabled drivers. They are the same drivers as the normal NVIDIA, okay, say GeForce or RTX or whatever, but then it will like have a special connector to WSL, and inside WSL you will be able to, let's say, load the the GP, or yeah, load calculation of the GPU. Okay, you'll be able to see the GPUs and be able to leverage them. Now, when I heard about pass through, like in virtualization pass through, it means that you have a direct access to your GPU, okay, and like NVIDIA Grid or something like that. So you have like a part of the your GPU that is reserved or allowed, allocated, sorry, to the virtualization that is using it. So for me, in that terminology, there's no GPU pass through today. Hope it makes sense. I don't hear you anymore. You muted.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Sir. So I'm just saying is I think I believe the person asking this question as a understand can understand from the question as well. And also one of the comments I really like about it, I will try to be Swiss as well. Take no side in a specific internet platform. Great.
No, it's like if you take sides, it's good. Like you can defend what you prefer, but for defending something, you have to understand the other thing you are trying to defend against. That's why here I can talk to you like how to use. I'm not an expert on them, but how to use Rancher Desktop, Docker Desktop, Podman on Windows. because I like to switch, I like to learn, and every tool has its own strengths. So depending on what you will do and how you will use it, then one tool will be just better than the other, right? The developers are not the same, the mentality, the goal is not the same. So yeah, it's try to see what the other tools can do. Just one thing that is really important is like all these tools reuse what Docker started. So Docker started to work with WSL like Ubuntu at the very beginning. Okay, so they are here, like the container world in WSL, they are also one of the leads that help WSL shape to the form that it is today. So the when you use Docker so you saw like I use containerd for Rancher Desktop, but if you use Docker what it will do is like it will reuse actually the socket that was created on Windows to communicate with the socket inside WSL2. Okay, it's a bit, let's say, low level, but anyway, that's how it works, of Docker. So it will be Docker engine reused. So if you launch both of them at the same time, you will have issues. Okay, the same goes for Podman. Okay, Podman will do exactly the same. All right. So here, once I installed it, so if I do kubectl, okay, I might have to launch one terminal. Yeah, perfect. So I just did tab, but Docker Desktop, Podman, and Rancher Desktop, they do all the same. They add their binaries into your path, so you have to simply relaunch terminal. And here, if I do a get nodes, you will be able to see the name that I didn't change even, what it is, how long it is, and you can see that's exactly the version that we have here on Kubernetes. So we are running against here. What it does, both of them, what they do is like they will create two distributions. One that is simply data for configuration, so you don't really care about this one, and another one that is here, and actually it's really running all what is behind. Okay. That's Rancher Desktop. And you see, it took like maybe 2 minutes the first time to run, and that was it. And here now, I can start playing with it. I can change the versions. I can change the to Docker, for example. So here, if I type Docker, I have it. Cool. But if I type a Docker version, for example, you can see. Look what I like I said before. It's reusing, okay, the Docker engine. So let us swap to Docker. Now here you can see that it's shutting down fully. So it's not live, but this one will be not running. As you can see, this one now changed compared to what we had before, right? It was stopped. Now because we restarted, it started again. Okay, at some point in time, you'll see that it will be stopped again. Okay, so now it's installing everything that Rancher Desktop built for, and then you will be able to do a Docker version. And at some point in time, I need to let it start, but at some point in time, you will see that I have access to it, or maybe I have to again restart like the terminal, but I don't think so. But anyway, so that's Rancher Desktop. I mean, we can go way deeper than that, but as you can see, because WSL2 was there, it was configured more or less the way I wanted. Okay, and I didn't do any configuration, as you saw. So by default, if you don't know WSL2, you just want to enable it to be able to install Rancher Desktop, Docker Desktop, Podman, and you want to actually run commands on it against it and start playing your with your cloud native or start your cloud native journey, let's say, you can just do that. And again, I didn't really configure anything. It's all by default, right? Sorry. We were also doing penguin at some point in time, but my poor penguin like got lost in my.
It's
Okay, so
absolutely.
here it started, and here we go.
Wow.
So Docker version. So you can see that there's a client. Okay, there's a client that is see OS, Windows, and then at the other end I have the server, and we can see it's Linux running. Okay. Any other questions?
So I can look at the chat and have no any other question, but it's been a wonderful. I think you're reading my mind, like all the questions that I have in mind. You have addressed wonderfully well during the presentation. Like one of the question I think will a lot, you explain it wonderfully well. The file performance issues in the WSL,
Yeah.
and also you see the importance of WSL because people say like, why do I want to use WSL? At the end of the day, when you look at the Portman desktop, the Rancher desktop, and the Docker desktop, it's all behind the WSL. And
Yeah.
when something broke and something is not expecting to what you think about, like I have expectation, but the output is absolutely beyond my expectation. What do you say? So I think it's WSL. You don't need to. I think you need to learn those technologies because not just because of so we started the conversation like it's a very fast VM. You just created, do a demo, and read a
Yeah.
blog post, install command, do the apps, see this how the blog post is written, and replicate every step. And it's been a very wonderful process. So I think it's been a wonderful explanation of all these wonderful concepts as well. And I also mentioned to the audience your WSL learning resource, and that I really love about
Oh
WSL.dev
yeah.
is a
So
place for you to
yeah,
learn all these kind of technologies and plus books from Hayden Barnes and all other guys.
exactly. So that's a good segue. So let's we I will go to the end then, and then we can discuss yet a little bit more if you want. But it's like it doesn't stop here. Hopefully, it starts here your journey. And another point that I didn't mention, but in my previous work, it was a Windows shop. What they call the Windows shop, it means like it's all Windows servers, clients, everything. No Linux, nowhere. Okay. Your computer, your laptop that people give you, potentially they will not be able to run Hyper-V, not because it can't technically, but because you are behind a company policy. Okay. So because they don't want you to run a full Hyper-V, here WSL potentially can really help you to say, okay, so this is a Windows feature, is not something else. Can I enable it? And then you have the store and you install your OpenSUSE, your Ubuntu, your whatever, Penguin, right? And then you can run and start learning Linux, for example, commands at least. All right. That's how I felt when I was in my previous company. Is like WSL2 was a small door that yet unknown was not that dangerous. And I really do air quotes here because Hyper-V, it's okay, right? But for time to time, people don't want you to install Hyper-V. Okay, they are maybe afraid that you install maybe unlicensed Linux or like Red Hat or something like that. Like you try to do something or unlicensed Windows, for example. Okay, so for that matter, then you can ask for WSL2 if you are really stuck with Windows. Okay, if you, and again, you can start with WSL2 and move on to Linux on a laptop, Raspberry Pi. Maybe the Raspberry Pi will maybe tell you a bit more now. Okay, oh, let me get these 10, 20 bucks, okay, dollars or whatever, that I can have a small Linux just to learn. Well, WSL2 is not Raspberry Pi by no means, right? But at least the commands can be run on both. So now you are learning already how to interact with your Raspberry Pi. right? So anyway, if you want to learn more, I strongly suggest first the Windows system for Linux, okay? Pro Windows subsystem for Linux, okay? Pro WSL by my very good friend Aidan Barnes, okay? Very detailed book. We have also the Windows subsystem for Linux 2, actually that came out first by Stuart Leaks, and this one it's more like this presentation. It will tell you really the bits, tips, and tricks. That's the title, right? And you will be able to actually start your journey lightweight. Okay. Once you want to learn more, or if you want like a book that contains all, go for the Pro. Me, I have both. Okay, I won't lie. I read both. And lately, actually, Stephen Rose at CEO Sec or with the tree actually created also on Udemy a course. Okay, the complete WCL2 course. Quite nice. I read through it. As you can see, is as the name says, is like into more security. So it had quite a lot of examples with actually Kali Linux, which is a security-based Linux distribution. Quite nice. And then, if you really want to learn more, there's quite a lot about Azuretar with my friends. Let's say that how do you say? We created this channel, or Azuretar created the channel, and at the very beginning it was like a bilingual thing, like English and Portuguese. Okay, so if you really want to learn more about Azure Cloud Native, and potentially you speak Brazilian, not so well Brazilian and Portuguese, because I'm Portuguese and my friends are Brazilian. But if you want to learn there, please go there. We have also more in Portuguese again, Micro Hobby. Uh, so it's more about embedded systems. Quite nice how is using actually WSL to develop at some point in time a Linux distribution, and is really proficient on embedded systems. Uh, One common friend of Saim and myself, our dear friend Sayam Patak, that created a week, what we call the WSL2 week. There's a lot of, let me see, you can see that there's again people that you see. Here you have Carlos, the inventor of Penguin, and he will do a deep dive, and Patrick, who invented the tooling around WSL actually. And what you were saying, thank you very much, Saim. WSL.dev, that's where I blog posts a little bit less recently, but I will put again more things in the future. So yeah, I blog. And the blog, by the way, it's like where I post blogs. The blogs belong to Brian Kettleson. Remember the hat? So he's a phenomenal of person. I love him. So that's why. Anyway, here we go. Windows subsystem for Linux 2.
Thank you, Nuno. It's been a wonderful presentation with you today, and I learned a lot. And we will be definitely getting in touch to have some Docker, Podman, Rancher desktop, WSL deep dive. I will be in touch with you. So unfortunately, we
Yeah,
have the absolutely. Unfortunately, we have enough time, but it's been a wonderful. Like you're reading my mind and questions, and it's been a wonderful. Like some of the things that thinking about, like what are the things are very complicating to set up. But I think we at least show to the people like it's been a very fastest way to learn Linux,
yeah.
to play around with Linux, and it's behind the scene for view for Podman, Rancher, and Windows Desktop or the Docker Desktop. So I think it's been a great session with you, and keep an eye out because we have to do more and more as we think of as we doing on this channel. So thank you very much. Have a great time, and thank you very much for spending time with me. It's a great learning. So stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Bye bye. We can see you again in the future.
Thank you, everyone.